Thank you very much. Good evening, friends. My name is Srinivas Chari. I teach at Administrative Staff College of India. ASCII is a think tank as well as provides capacity building support for national, state, and local governments in different disciplines. Water and sanitation is my area of interest. So today's conversation on continuous water supply, round-the-clock water supply is one of our areas of deep interest. So first of all, I would like to thank all of you, especially the panelists, for joining today's conversation. So yesterday we have celebrated 75th year of India's independence, and it was wonderful. And today we have assembled to celebrate another I would say freedom or independence, a journey towards independence from intermittent bad water quality and bad water management system. So for me, was deeply connected to water sector. I would say that this journey is another freedom journey, another independence. So, and it's very, very momentous for me. So thank you everyone for joining. Many of us know that as citizens, we get water supply once in 2 days, daily water supply for a couple of hours. It's a norm, but today's conversation is a new journey, is a new, I would say, occasion where our conversation will be about round the clock, open the tap, 24-hour water supply conversation. So I'm very, very thankful to all of you for joining today. Now, on this panel, we have with us thought leaders, eminent, I would say I call them as freedom fighters, if I may say so, picking up the right occasion because we celebrated India's independence yesterday. We have with us Mr. Mathivathanan, who's a Principal Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Department, Government of Orissa, a thought leader, done phenomenal work in the sanitation space and now in the water sector. So in my 20 years of urban and practice, particularly water and sanitation, I must say that I haven't met a person like him who has accomplished so much in a very short span of 3 to 4 years that I know him. Thank you very much, sir. It's a pleasure and honor to have you on this discussion. We also have with us Mr. Shinde, who's a politician by profession, done phenomenal work. He is representing Malkapur Municipal Council. He's been in the council at various positions, currently vice president of the council, but heading the water and sanitation department and related issues as a politician. And he's sort of sustained and controlled this journey of 24 water supply for the last 10 years that I know of. So I'm very, very excited to meet him again. Thank you very much, Sindesa, for joining. And we welcome you to this on this occasion. Thirdly, we have Mr. Mahendra. Mahendra has seen the evolution of urban 24/7 round-the-clock water supply journey for the last 10 years, right from the days of JNNURM, the ups and downs, and he is now working in more than 8 to 9 cities across the country, particularly in Karnataka on 24-hour water supply journey. He is representing Suez, one of the leading thought leaders, private sector player, and he is going to bring some of the very practical experience of public-private partnerships, why they have taken off or why they have not taken off in India. And finally, we have again a global thought leader, Dr. Richard Francis, a dear friend. He was earlier with Cranfield University. Prior to that, he was with Water Engineering Development Center, has phenomenal experience and understanding of this water sector reforms globally, particularly with the deep interest in India. He has been part of this journey of round-the-clock water supply, if I may say so, and now he's part of the advisory group of IRC. And thank you very much, Richard, for joining on a different time zone, but much more comfortable time zone, I suppose. So thank you very much. Now, let me share my screen and just outline why we are meeting, why we are celebrating, why I call this as a freedom movement from intermittent water supply. So just I will take another couple of minutes to set the context, and then we would invite Mr. Mathivatanan to deliver the keynote address. Now, very important, I would also like to say that we have on this webinar people from more than 10 different countries, mostly from India, mostly from the government, quite a few from the private sector, universities, NGOs, and research institutions. So a lot of people are on the YouTube. So we restricted the numbers on the Zoom call, and quite a few are on the YouTube channel. So I welcome all of you for joining this webinar at a very short notice. Now, a brief about today's agenda for the benefit of everyone. Dr. Manli, can you see the agenda? I mean, can you see my screen? Any concerns or any?
Yeah, it's visible.
It's visible.
So we can see it, sir. You can put it on a slide. Yeah, now we can see it.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Thank you. So I will start, next 5 minutes, I would speak about recounting India's journey towards continuous water supply, water from the tap, round the clock water supply, how we went through this journey. And then we would have Mr. Mathivatanan giving keynote address, particularly his phenomenal experience of bringing, the Puri's journey of continuous water supply, but more importantly, the vision for Orissa. Following that, we would invite Mr. Shinde, who's going to talk about his 10 years of journey in this round-the-clock water supply of Malkapur town, and how Malkapur led to, the inspiring many other local bodies, urban and rural local bodies in Maharashtra. Then we would have Mr. Mahendra speak about Karnataka experience. What are the lessons that are emerging, and what are the roadblocks, as well as the positives that are emerging from your experience of Karnataka. Of course, he's also working in Coimbatore, he's working in Kolkata, he's working in Bangalore, but I requested him to speak about the statewide experience of Karnataka in general. Then finally, we would have Dr. Richard Francis. After listening to this whole story, he's going to sort of share his insights, both listening to all of us as well as from his own experience on how to sustain and how to achieve scale, the way we are achieving scale with regard to fecal sludge and septage management. How do we achieve scale with regard to continuous water supply? When I open a tap, I should get clean water round the clock. So how do we do it? What are the ways? What is the ecosystem we need to build? And what sort of advocacy we need to make in order to get this continuous water supply achieving scale across length and breadth of the country. So that's the agenda. Now, when we interacted with a number of people on this webinar, over calls as well as interactions even otherwise, still there are a lot of doubts, skepticism about why do we need round-the-clock water supply? Why do we need pressurized continuous water supply in cities and towns? Why can't we have a regular 1 hour or 2 hours of water supply so that that's good enough for us? And that's a big argument, pushback I keep getting in my own work. So I think it's important to set the context very clearly, and this context gets amplified again and again during the keynote address of Mr. Mathivatanan. Now, there are 2 or 3 compelling reasons. I'm not going to bore you with all the stats. This is an old slide dating back to 15, 20 years, but I'm compelling to use it. When you have continuous water supply, it enhances public health. So that's the compelling reason why cities and urban areas as well as rural communities should start envisioning continuous water supply. Now, when we have intermittent water supply, there is a very high potential of contaminated water from septic tanks, leachate, sewer systems getting into the pipe network, aged pipe network through leaking joints, through pretty old pipe network, and then there is a very high risk of this contaminated water getting into the household and households consuming it when you have intermittent supply, when you have alternate day supply, or when you have a daily supply for 1 hour or 2 hours. Now, this is one of the big reasons, public health reasons, that we started promoting, and we need to start promoting continuous water supply. And there's no need to get into the details, but just one single point that I would like to amplify here is that when you have continuous water supply, round the clock water supply with pressure, the risk of public health gets reduced. Now, even if you have decent supply, daily supply, for a couple of hours, this was a field work I was doing in one of the villages, they have fairly good supply, 14-hour supply, but still they end up storing the water, and then the citizens, households will end up drinking suboptimal water quality because of this storage situation. Hence, pressurized continuous water supply is promoted all over the world, and now promoted in Orissa, promoted in Malkapur and a couple of other places. Now one can argue, why not we go for 20-hour supply? Why 24-hour supply? The benefit of pressurized continuous water supply gets amplified when you give it round the clock. I'm not saying we should not have a gradual improvement, but the real true benefit, public health benefit, can be accrued if you have round the clock pressurized water supply. And that's the reason we've been using for a long period of time and is being used even now. Now, the second reason, compelling reason, which we use for justifying continuous water supply, and you will hear from other speakers much more practically, is the citizens are unhappy because they lose income, they lose wages, they lose their opportunity cost of time when in an intermittent water supply. And on top of it, people like us will spend enormous amount of time coping with intermittent water supply. For example, Hyderabad, my coping cost, my alternate cost for existing suboptimal water supply as a citizen is about close to 1,700 rupees, because I have a sump, I have an over a tank, I have power supply for exclusive power supply for pumping this water supply, then I have an aquaguard systems. So my direct and indirect cost put together is phenomenal. So that's one of the reasons why we need to start envisioning 24 hours round the clock supply from a citizen's point of view, and also from utility point of view. There are strong benefits which I'm not going to speak about it, because from a utility point of view, the continuous water supply benefits the utility in terms of longevity of the network, like oil and gas sector. Water supply also, if you have intermittent supply, wear and tear will impact the network, the assets. Now, given this, is it something new to us? Is this concept very academic? In fact, is it just the concept of Orissa or concept of Maharashtra or a few other places? Honestly, surprisingly, I would like you to take back to 1949. In fact, this is a document which Dr. Deen Dayalan has shared with me, and I also spotted this document later in Mussoorie Academy, LBS Academy. This is a committee report which led to the formation of public health engineering in our country, and also CPHO and such organizations. This document dates back post-independence. Dr. Gupta actually, Dr. Das Gupta was the chair of this committee, and he submitted this committee to Government of India in 1949. And it's very, very fascinating to read this document. It says in 1949, please understand, in 1949 it said, intermittent water supply should be discouraged as far as possible. In our opinion, they result only in dissatisfaction, wastage of water, inequitable distribution, and risk of contamination of water by back siphonage or insuction during hours of low pressure. Intermittent supply is also open to objections that the flushing of closets is interrupted and fighting of tires is impossible during the hours of interruption. It has been very interesting. It has been demonstrated recently at Lucknow that the waterworks authorities can successfully supply water all the 24 hours, educate a community used only to intermittent supply to adapt themselves to continuous supply and reduce their consumption. Even in intermittent supplies, a judicious readjustment of the hours of supply will reduce wastage. Now, this is a quote verbatim from 1949 report of India, which has really amplified the importance of having pressurized round-the-clock water supply from public point of view. Now, this report was submitted to public health, to the health department actually, because there was no urban development in those days. There was no water and sanitation department predominantly in those days. Now, there's another interesting, one or two interesting quotes, because it's fascinating to share with all of you. We wish to remind designers that intermittent water supplies generally require large design capacities in filters than would otherwise be necessary, and that they result in heavier capital outlay. So well written. Continuing the story of 1949, before I come to 2021, devices for measuring and recording the flow and pressure of water should be provided at suitable points to enable the operation to maintain statistics about consumption and trace water of waste of water. There was the metering system, the regulations, the flow and pressure measurements were strongly articulated in that report. The water supply to large consumers should be measured and charged for. So the tariff and pricing was also, the incremental block tariff concept was also promoted way back in those days. Going on a little further, just like to say, and then I would hand it over, very interesting from an institutional standpoint, the waterworks account should be separated from other municipal accounts, and a sinking fund should be created out of the waterworks revenue for replacement and for payoff loans. And the capital cost of municipal water supply should in principle be borne at least partly by the municipality. This is exactly the principles of Jain Environment, even Amrut Mission. In fact, we have diluted it by saying that the municipality should meet only O&M cost. I mean, this is not an important issue, but our forefathers have actually thought through some of these issues much more carefully. Now, this is not just about India. This is there all over the world. In fact, I have taken senior IAS officers, I have taken engineers to most of these countries to demonstrate that round the clock drink from the tap is a norm in many of these economies which are poorer than us. This is just an illustration. The one in the middle, Exxon Chan, he is the Magsaysay Awardee winner. He was a managing director of Phnom Penh Water Authority those days. To the left is Mr. Khan from Dhaka Wasa. They're also delivering round-the-clock water supply for most part of the Dhaka city. Moving on, in the center was the managing director of Kampala Water. So this is not something unique globally. This has to be done, and it has been done even in less developed or even emerging economies. Is there enough water in urban areas in India? And we have loads of data, thanks to 13 Finance Commission, thanks to service level benchmarks of Government of India, that this data is available. We have more or less in production, we have substantial amount of water we produce, but when it comes to delivery, it is still suboptimal. I'm not going to get into all the details, but just to highlight the points for doubting Thomas that we are producing water, but we are unable to distribute to the common citizen round the clock when they open the tap to clean water supply. Now, very interesting, friends, this question, if you see today's seminar, continuous water supply is achievable. Way back in 2002-03, this was a question mark. Is the goal of continuous water supply for all feasible and ever achievable? This was a question mark in 2003 when we assembled more than 110 people from all over the country, officers, engineers, and the key question was, can we achieve 24-hour water supply? Now, from then onwards, this conversation has begun, but this conversation has only begun, but there was no major action. which I will come to that little later. I think it's important to understand that we do not repeat these mistakes that have happened in the past. And that's why this webinar is about celebrating the current success, but also make sure this success gets effectually sort of promoted across the country. Now, we started a network of cities called Change Management Forum. We invited Government of India those days. Mr. Kosal Ram was a secretary, then Mr. Datta was a minister. Everybody committed for this cause of continuous water supply. They all signed up. About 30 cities have signed up under the leadership of the Government of India when this continuous water supply journey has begun. Now, I recall, I'm just sharing this with you because there was ups and downs in this journey, and it's very important to a little bit of reflection on this. In 2003, Hyderabad, 2003 and 4, we had Chief Minister at the time was a doctor. He felt the need for continuous water supply. The then Managing Director, Mr. Jawar Reddy, myself, we sat with the community and piloted continuous water supply. The piloted lasted till the Managing Director was available, and then subsequently it could not sustain. Another interesting story, a politician started continuous water supply. His name is Chairperson Satyanarayana. He started in a town called Ramagundam. Those days in 2003-4, he introduced the concept of metering and volumetric billing. But again, because of change of leadership after sustaining for 3 to 4 years, again, it has rolled back because of the political and other reasons. Now, this was another interesting communication from Chandigarh. The commissioner of Chandigarh at that time, Mr. MP Singh, said that he started this program and he's experiencing a lot of bottlenecks, but he was very, very enthusiastic about it. So just reflecting on the journey, 25 cities were ambitiously moving towards, at those days, continuous water supply. And then JNNURM came, the service level benchmarking for the first time in the world and in the country, that round the clock 24-hour water supply was embedded in the service level benchmarking. This was a very, very interesting, I would say, landmark when many engineers, many planners were reluctant to believe that continuous water supply was feasible. That's when Government of India, Dr. Deen Dayalan was there, and many other champions persuaded. We started putting together a lot of capacity building programs. Just important to know that we had partnership with Singapore, and we had partnerships with France. We had partnership with a number of agencies to build capacities. But very interestingly, the movement was very, very positive. Karnataka was a thought leader. They have moved forward. Malkapur is another thought leader. And I'm happy to say that Mr. Shinde and the team of Maharashtra Jeevan Pradhikaran, in fact, Dr. Dasasra and all his leadership team, they won the Prime Minister's Civil Service Award for transforming intermittent water supply to continuous water supply. Now, that's the reason, a very small town, but very, very interesting situation. Nagpur started, but went through terrible ups and downs. There was a lot of challenges, though general body has approved it. Even after so many years, still they are going through the challenges. In fact, Sir Mathivatan sir, I remember in 2008, we prepared the DPR those days for continuous water supply. It was submitted to Government of India, JNNURM, but the funds were not available. So the journey was very, very fascinating. We also had the awards for urban water sector and sanitation, where Honorable Prime Minister or President of India used to give away awards to the city leadership and the principal secretaries and others. So 24-hour round-the-clock water supply also received a response from the national government in those days. Now, I must say that these are all experiments. These are all experiments, but the headlines, when I saw the headlines, I must say, this is the headlines. It is not the headlines of Puri. This is not the headlines of Orissa. This is the national headlines. When I opened Times of India in Hyderabad, when I saw the full page, which speaks about clean, round the clock from the tap, then I think that is the landmark in my view. The journey of last 15 to 17 years is one, but getting these headlines and demonstrating is something, it's a very unique moment for urban India. And I hope this will be the turning point. And this turning point needs to be amplified, taken to larger geographies under the leadership of Mr. Mathivatana and others who are committed to this. Let me also tell you that under Smart City Mission in the ABD areas, there are 28 components. One of the components is round the clock water supply. Even Smart City Mission couldn't deliver what it was meant to deliver as far as water is concerned. It is because of Orissa that we got the spotlight. It is because of Puri that we got the spotlight again, and it has got the attention at the national level. I think this is what we need to celebrate. And I